Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
Decision to be made in Dominica regarding the elections coming up on Friday. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Monday, December 2nd. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. A high court in Dominica will on Tuesday rule whether it has jurisdiction to hear an application by 7 Dominicans seeking to postpone Friday's general elections. The group is seeking to have the polls held in February next year. But the respondents in the case, which include President Charles Savarin, say the court has no jurisdiction to grant such an application. CMC's Peter Richards is in Dominica and gives us an update of the ongoing hearing.
The High Court Judge Bernie Stevenson has already made it clear that this matter will go forward to the Trinidad-based Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, when she delivers her ruling on Tuesday morning. As we speak now, the court is still in session. But before that, Cara Shillingford, one of the lawyers representing the 7 people who are seeking to have the elections postponed until February next year, she says that the issue before the court on the whole question of jurisdiction, which is what the court was hearing today, because the lawyers for President Charles Savarin, as well as the Electoral Commission and the state-owned DBS Radio, they are arguing that this court, the High Court, has no jurisdiction to hear the matter. They're saying that this matter could only proceed by the way of an election petition. But Shillingford is arguing that the Constitution provides a right for persons to seek redress, especially in a case where they are going into an election where they are likely to be disenfranchised. She said the constitutional right to vote is also attached to the principles of democracy, and that the people must decide who are the persons to govern them. She says one of the issues with the electoral list is that it must be addressed before the elections take place on December 6th. But Lennox Lawrence, who is representing the president in the matter, said that the president was wrongfully named. As a result, the motion being put forward by the 7 people to have the election deferred to February next year should be thrown out. He said the Attorney General was the person to whom was the proper authority to whom that application should have been made and named. He says the election begins with the issuance of the writ, and so all proceedings to challenge any matter to deal with elections must be brought through by the question of a petition. An interesting argument came from Heather Evans, who is representing the Electoral Commission. She says you could call a rose by whatever name, it is still a rose. She is arguing that the whole thrust of the claims by the 7 people are to stop the elections on December 6th. And she questions, can the court do this? This is a preemptive strike, she says. Basically, what the applicants are saying is that these various reliefs which they are seeking, these reliefs are more or less to render the elections invalid. And she says the Constitution provides the mechanisms under which these matters could be checked. She said once the writ was issued, the process began, and anything between when the the issuance of the writ as well as to the return of the election results, the only way you could challenge that is through an election petition. As I said earlier on, the court is still in session, and Justice Bernie Stevenson has already indicated that she's likely to deliver her judgment by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and that's Tuesday morning. And again, she's indicating that on whichever side the coin falls, the matter will go before the Trinidad-based Caribbean Court of Justice.
Thank you very much, Peter. And over in Trinidad and Tobago, polls in the local government elections have closed and counting has begun. Over 1 million electors were eligible to go to the polls to elect 139 councillors to serve in 14 municipal corporations in Trinidad. The last local government election was won by the Dr. Keith Rowley-led People's National Movement with 83 electoral districts, while the opposition United National Congress, UNC, won 54. There were discrepancies reported in several locations of voting today, but none that caused major issues. There were allegations of unlawful practices in Chaguanas. UNC leader Kamra Prasad Basesa said there were also reports of a PNM candidate blocking voters from voting, and that was reported to the police. Well, one UNC candidate will be facing a battle in court regardless of whether he wins the seat he's contesting in the local government elections. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is planning to sue Devon Thomas over what has been described as utterly vile, derogatory and defamatory statements made at a UNC rally on Saturday. Well, that's according to a statement from the Office of the Prime Minister, OPM. TV6's Joel Brown reports.
OPM says the, quote, offensive statements, end quote, are what it called the continuation of the UNC's campaign, which specifically targeted the Prime Minister in the run-up to the 2015 general election. The OPM said, quote, there's absolutely no room in Trinidad and Tobago for statements which have sinister and divisive undertones and seek to describe the Prime Minister as having committed a heinous crime, end quote. TV6 News contacted UNC Public Relations Officer Anita Haynes via telephone to find out whether the party does or does not condone the statements made by one of its candidates.
The United National Congress really does not stand by the comments made by Mr. Thomas, and I think Mr. Thomas has seen the error in his ways. He was in the middle of a performance and was doing some freestyling, so I don't think he meant to cause any kind of hurt or harm, but it happened and he regrets it.
Senator Haynes said UNC political leader Kamra Prasad Basesa, the leader of the opposition, was not present when Mr. Thomas made his remarks, but was informed of what he said after the rally.
I can't say if she spoke to Mr. Thomas, but I know that she sought clarification and absolutely does not endorse any of those statements or anything like that. And look, we've endeavored to run a very clean campaign that has been focused on the issues, that has been focused on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And what Mr. Thomas said was, like I said before, he was doing a freestyle and we don't condone it, but we also don't want it to be a defining moment in a campaign that was very clearly about the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
On his Facebook page on Sunday, Mr. Thomas offered an apology to the UNC political leader and to the UNC for comments he made during his performance at the Work Nation rally on Saturday. Mr. Thomas said he also wished to apologize to the Prime Minister for his comments and assured everyone that he will do his best to make amends.
Over in Guyana, the opposition People's Progressive Party Civic, PPPC, is promising to enact campaign finance legislation if it wins elections next March. The promises are contained in the party's manifesto entitled Our Plan for Prosperity. Newsroom's Bibi Katoon has the details.
Taking the podium was the party's presidential candidate Irfan Ali. An energetic Ali began and ended his speech calling on persons who have not historically supported the PPP and those who would have walked away to vote for the PPPC come March 2, 2020. Ali promised that his party will tackle issues faced by citizens in education, health, infrastructure, security and other sectors. He reiterated the party's plans to create 50,000 jobs, provide 50,000 house lots, increase cash grants to school children, reopen sugar estates, and ensure every household has access to internet. Key among the party's promises, however, is to end corruption by enacting campaign finance legislation and ensure that the government disclose all monies received from players in the petroleum sector. Opposition leader Barry Jagdev said the PPPC, if elected to office, will put systems in place which can see the finance minister being jailed if he does not disclose monies received from oil companies.
The reason we agreed we were going this route is because suddenly we become a big player, will become a major player in the natural resources sector with oil and gas being discovered here now. And we know of the capability of companies to subvert political parties. So we have to ensure that foreign money doesn't play a role in influencing national policy, particularly in these sectors that are so crucial to the well-being of Guyanese.
Still to come, Suriname's president declares his innocence on his return to the country after being convicted of 15 murders. Stay with us.
You may have heard that you should have disaster supplies on hand, but what should you pack? How to get started? And what maintenance is necessary? Disaster supply kits should include preserved or canned foods, clean water in sanitized containers, at least 5 gallons per family member per day, extra medical supplies such as insulin, inhalers, blood pressure medication,
Welcome back. Suriname's President Daisy Bouterse returned home on Sunday, declaring his innocence after a military court sentenced him to 20 years in jail for his involvement in the 1982 murders of 15 political opponents. He was on a visit to China when the ruling was handed down last Friday. Bouterse branded the ruling as political and told supporters that the decision of the three-member military court was not unexpected. He plans to challenge the results and will meet with his advisors and members of parliament to discuss the next step. Bouterse added that he's focused on the May 2020 general elections, in which he will lead the ruling National Democratic Party, even as opposition parties call for him to step down. In a lengthy verdict last week, the military court said Bouterse had overseen an operation in which soldiers under his command abducted 16 leading government critics, including lawyers, journalists, and university teachers, and killed 15 of them at a colonial fortress in the capital, Paramaribo. Police in Jamaica are reporting that the number of murders from January to November was higher than the same period last year. The increase comes despite states of emergency being declared in several parishes. We get the details in this TVJ News report.
The period January 1 to November 30, 2019, crime statistics show that murders are up by roughly 2%. That means there were 22 more reported murders in comparison to the over 1,200 in the same period last year. Only 472 were cleared up. The St. Andrew South Police Division, which is still under a state of a public emergency, has the highest number of murders, 158. It's followed by St. James with 137. Shootings are also up by roughly 7%. This down arrow shows the trend with rape, a 2.4% reduction. So too is aggravated assault by almost 5%. When combined, accusatory crimes such as robberies, break-ins and larceny are up by about 4%. Close to 600 firearms seized and over 13,000 rounds of ammunition. Meanwhile, Chief of Defense Staff Lieutenant General Rocky Meade says the Army is far advanced in its planning for the declaration of more ZOSOs. He gave the update at a recent meeting of the National Security Council. This follows an announcement from the Prime Minister that about 7 more ZOSOs will be declared as part of government's anti-crime strategy.
Efforts to continue elimination of the spread of the HIV virus continue across the region more than 30 years after it was discovered. On Sunday, as the Caribbean joined in the observance of World AIDS Day, there were more calls to end stigma and discrimination against people living with the disease. And as we hear in this report from TTT News, HIV/AIDS appears to be on the decline in Trinidad and Tobago.
Over the last 5 years, Trinidad and Tobago has seen a significant decrease in HIV/AIDS-related deaths. This according to representative of the Central Statistical Office, Simone Rollins. The CSO representative said it appears persons infected with the virus seem to be taking better care of themselves.
For 2018, we have 178 deaths recorded compared to 2014, which was 210. So we are seeing a slight decrease in the number of people dying from HIV.
And while HIV/AIDS-related deaths are down, there is still serious concern regarding discrimination of persons infected with the virus. Manager of the Ministry of Labour's AIDS Advocacy Unit, Heather Rodney, told TTT News her department has received at least 3 reports for 2019 from persons in the private sector complaining they've been questioned about their HIV status. She said while there is no dedicated legislation in place to protect employees from this type of discrimination, the Ministry of Labour is not treating with the matter lightly.
This is why we have embarked on a promotional campaign to promote the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS. In so doing, we are hoping that employers realize that it is wrong to ask employees to get tested.
And although some figures are decreasing, other numbers are on the rise. HIV/AIDS coordinator in the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, Maria Cruikshank-Gibbs, says more elderly citizens seem to be contracting the virus.
You know, in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the sugar daddy syndrome, especially with the advent of Viagra. You know, some men are like superheroes sometimes, and when Rose sang about she wants a young boy, so we have the cougar syndrome, so there are a number of issues.
Members of the public were encouraged to take part in on-the-spot HIV testing, as the ministry is also encouraging people to know their status to aid in reducing the spread of the AIDS virus.
Ahead in sport, Windies emerging players win their maiden regional Super 50 title. The details after the break.
All meaningful, substantive, philosophical education is valuable to us. Whether it is Asian, whether it is European, whether it is African, it is extremely important. One must examine, and like CLR did, all avenues of thought. Now, one must have a certain integrity with regard to the things that you do believe in and work with.
Charlie, there's people that have lived here in Wahiawa all their life. They cross the bridge every day. They have no clue that there's a lake here, much less how great the fishing is.
That blows my mind away. Being able to have the opportunity to go saltwater fishing, that's a given, and then go freshwater fishing for peacock bass, which is a unique species of fish. Gotta tell you, that's pretty cool.
Oh my, there you go.
Whoa, here you go.
We've got a huge fan base. They're all into the off-road racers, and a lot of the people that I race against also race in the Baja racing, so it's a very easy transition. And we worked on this barrel roll. It's basically taking a Baja-style truck and spinning it in the air, 4,500-pound truck, spinning it in the air and landing it on the ground. Nobody's ever done that before. Yeah, we worked on that for 4 years, and we decided to roll it out down at Ensenada, and it was really well received.
Dominant West Indies emerging players defied all odds to script a fairy tale end to an astonishing regional Super 50 Cup campaign when they crushed favourites Leeward Islands Hurricanes by a record 205 runs on Sunday night. In a one-sided final at Queen's Park Oval in Trinidad, emerging players made a bold statement by piling up and imposing 293 for 7 off 50 overs. Left-handed opener Leonardo Julian hit a fluent 83 from 85 balls. Faced with a record run chase to win their first title in 9 years, Hurricanes folded meekly for 88 inside 27 overs as off-spinner Kevin Sinclair with 4 for 20 and leg-spinning captain Yannick Correa 3 for 8 demolished the innings. They were fighting at 64 for 3 in the 18th over, but suffered a dramatic collapse to lose their last 7 wickets for just 24 runs. Left-hander Amir Jangu was the only batsman to reach 20, and he was just one of 3 specialist batsmen to reach double figures, as the Hurricanes' runs chase never got going after emerging players restricted the scoring early on. Still in cricket, former West Indies wicketkeeper batsman Derek Murray is expecting a good showing of the regional side when they face India in the upcoming T20 ODI series. TV6's Vinod Narwani tells us more.
Following the recent ODI and T20 series against the Afghans in Lucknow, former international keeper Derek Murray believes it was the ideal form of preparation for the Caribbean side going into the 2 white ball formats against India. The Windies meet India in 3 T20s and as many ODIs, with the first T20 starting Friday in Hyderabad. Murray says, quote, "It will be a different class of opposition for the West Indies, but certainly the West Indies team should be fully prepared after their outing against Afghanistan. It will be a true test of the progress the West Indies have made," unquote. The Windies beat Afghanistan 3-0 in the ODIs, but lost 2-1 in the T20 format. As such, Murray is hoping for a better showing from the lads in maroon after the loss to the Afghans in the abridged version. He says, quote, "I certainly hope the West Indies will be competitive in both formats, so I'm looking forward to a good series. It will certainly be tough because you are playing against a top-ranked side. I hope we will give a good account of ourselves," unquote. Murray believes a 2-1 result in both formats, either for the hosts or the visitors, is going to be a good result for the Windies. He says, quote, "It's better to lose 2-1 to India in both the T20s and ODIs than to lose to Afghanistan. And if we win 2-1, that is going to be a bonus for us," unquote.
Bermuda's cricketers have flown to Oman for the ICC Cricket World Cup Challenge League B without Vice-Captain Rodney Trott after an administrative oversight regarding his passport forced him to stay at home. The 32-year-old, who impressed as a stand-in captain midway through the T20 World Cup qualifier in Dubai last month, has been grounded because of a bureaucratic technicality, as his passport expires within 6 months of the team's departure for the Middle East. Trott has blamed the Bermuda Cricket Board for missing out on the trip. He was initially named as Taryn Frey's vice-captain in the 15-man squad for the 50 overs format, with the team looking to bounce back after a disappointing time in Dubai, where Dion Stovell stood down as captain for personal reasons. Bermuda lost all 6 of their matches, but Trott came away with his reputation as a potential leader enhanced. The initial phase of League B runs from December 2nd to 12th, with Bermuda's first match coming against Hong Kong next Tuesday. That will be followed by fixtures against Italy, Jersey, Kenya, and Uganda. Switching sports now, 6-time world champion Lewis Hamilton dominated from pole to finish as he capped off the Formula One season with victory in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix on Sunday. The Mercedes star hardly put a foot wrong, getting away to a good start to put distance between himself and his challengers to post his 11th win of the 21-race season and equal his career-best performance for a campaign.
The inside line, Sebastian Vettel has to jump on the brakes, otherwise he was right into the side of the Red Bull there, but in doing so Vettel prepared himself very nicely indeed to get the exit and with DRS to move alongside Albon down that back straight. He goes round the outside and Sebastian Vettel moves into 5th place, pushes Albon down into 6th.
Mate, we want to race Perez to the end, give it everything.
And Perez has got past Lando Norris as well. Sergio Perez getting Lando Norris on the final lap. Carlos Sainz trying to get at Nico Hülkenberg has now got Daniel Ricciardo right behind him as well. Sainz is in all sorts of bother at the moment as he scraps away to try and get 6th place in the Drivers' Championship. Lewis Hamilton has led every single lap of this race, had pole, has the fastest lap as well. It is Lewis Hamilton winning in Abu Dhabi to cap a championship winning season in 2019. Max Verstappen.
Ace Barbadian rider Patrick Husband celebrated his country's 53rd year of independence in style last weekend when he reeled off a triple on Saturday's 11-race card at the prestigious Woodbine racetrack. The 46-year-old Husband's the most successful jockey to emerge from the Caribbean nation, captured race 5 with 9-1 choice Bells of War, race 7 with 3-1 Bet, Moonlight Bet, and race 9 with favorite March of Dreams. Husbands, a 7-time Woodbine champion, opened his account in a 6.5 furlong sprint when he steered the Bay Filly Bells of War to a resounding 5-length win over the 2-year-old maiden fillies. Bells of War dueled first with Empire Angel and then with Jumping Jill Flash before sprinting clear at the furlong pole to dominate. And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
We keeping it real. We don't need no filters. We do whatever we feel, yeah. Shout out to my hood, but we don't hustle for the money and the food, oh. Yeah, no one ever have. No say we sip.
Hi, I'm Brittany Dixon, and you're watching Finding Fit, the show where I pair up one client with 2 trainers. Trainer number 1.
Oh my gosh.
It's about fitness, comedy.
You know, I can do this all day, you know.
Drama.
In future, we cannot be late.
Inspirational stories, and so much more. You are going to love it. You can catch Finding Fit prime time this fall on CaribVision.
Let your spirit take to flight. Let your heart run free and wild. Find your soul in Dominica, the nature isle.
Again, the major developments of this day: a judge in Dominica to rule on whether the High Court has jurisdiction to hear an application by 7 Dominicans seeking to have Friday's elections postponed until next February. And in sport, Wendy's emerging players win their maiden regional Super 50 title. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sports round the clock, subscribe to CondaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel as well. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.